because I think this one's very interesting. Let's go to the running back room. So Cedric Baxter coming off a knee injury and basically a whole knee redo. Basically, he had to replace basically everything in his knee. He tore like every tendon in his knee, so that's going to be very interesting. Trey Wisner does get over 1,000 yards on the season. Obviously, that takes more games than we would have liked it to. You have Jaden Blue going off to the NFL. You have Jarrett Gibson coming back. You have Christian Clark coming back from an Achilles. We'll see when he comes back. And then you have the two freshmen in James Simon and Ricky Stewart. What stands out in this room for you? Who do you think shines here? Or who do you think even starts the season, I guess, would be my first question.
Yeah, I would be shocked if it's not CJ Baxter, right? I think he's going to – it's wild to think of, like, in my lifetime where that is a career ender when I'm playing high school football, 20 years ago, right? And now it's like, oh, he'll be back in a year. But the question we have to answer, and we unfortunately, like you look at like Jonathan Brooks, right? What is that knee going to do? Is he going to be able to trust him? And ultimately, is there a risk for re-injury, right? Jay Brooks re-injured his knee for the Panthers this year. It's like that's something to keep an eye on. But I think I would be shocked if anybody but him is RB1 coming out of fall camp. Again, I'm not sure. I'm assuming we're going to see very light work from him in the spring. You're probably not going to see much of him, if anything, of him in the spring game. Again, I think the biggest question for me is like, what does that RB2 situation look like? Is it Jarrett Gibson? Is it Quintravian Wisner? Or is it one of the other three guys that we really haven't seen it? Is it Christian Clark, one of the freshmen? I don't think it'll be them. I think Trey Wisner and Jarrett Gibson are going to be the two. And Jarrett Gibson, I was rewatching some of the earlier games this year, and he is really good when he can hold on to the freaking ball. Like, Texas relied on him a lot in that Michigan game, a lot in the early season, and then he had some fumble issues. And so I think if he could sort that out in the spring, he's a really solid RB2, especially for Texas trying to run a lot of that inside zone. He's a guy that can just get in there and bang out 4.5 yards, which keeps you ahead of the chains.
Yeah, I think he had like 75 or 80 carries and he had like 5 fumbles. So he's got to clean that up. Like, that was a big deal. And I'm not going to be too hard because, again, a freshman, I've seen good freshmen, especially early on, make mistakes, fumble the football a lot. That's something that you can learn. My issue was with last year when Jaden Blue was doing it 3 to 4 years into your career. That's an issue.
Yeah.
Jared Gibson can still learn. I'm not super concerned about that. The thing is with Cedric Baxter, I agree with you. Like, talent-wise, he is definitely the number one running back on this team. No doubt about that, in my opinion. The problem is, I don't think early on you can rely on him to be the number one back. You have to ease him back into this role.
For sure.
Because, like you said, re-injury, that is very high risk coming back, playing contact football, and getting thrown into the fray, basically. So I think will be running back one on the depth chart, but I don't think he'll be getting the carries of a number one running back the first 4 or 5 games of the season. And that's what I'm interested to see. Like you said, who steps up? Is it going to be Trey Wisner again? Is it going to be Jarrett Gibson? Is it going to be one of the freshmen? I don't think Christian Clark plays in this too, because an Achilles is really hard to come back from.
Yeah.
You lose a lot of explosiveness. So I honestly think Jarrett Gibson will probably get the majority of carries early on in the season. That's just my opinion for right now. Obviously, this is the beginning, not even the beginning of spring ball, about 5 to 6 weeks out from that. So we're just making projections, but that would be my guess as to this at this point.
Yeah, he's going to be on a very strict pitch count. Like, there's no two ways around that. And so I think Jarrett Gibson is a kid who can come in if he can clean it up, right? As a freshman, like you said, it is not acceptable, but it is something that you can, like, okay, you could still grow through this, you could still develop through this. So what does that look like in year 2, right? Does Tashard Choice have the magic dust to sprinkle on him? Because that is, I mean, we did not see that development with Jaden Blue, right? Jaden Blue is still very much fumble prone. It's like, what does Tashard Choice do? How does he change it? Because that is going to be something that I think we need to watch. Is like, fumbles under Tashard Choice have been a thing. So I'm curious to see what that looks like. There's going to be a platoon. I don't think you'll see CJ Baxter get more than 10 or 15 carries per game, if that, maybe probably capping at 10, and then you see the other guys rotate in.
Yeah, I think especially, like, again, we're playing Ohio State week 1. We're not playing Louisiana Monroe or anything like that. Yeah. So you're playing like mano a mano, the same type of athletes that you'll play in the SEC in all season. So I don't think you're going to start him out. Here's 30 carries versus Ohio State. That's just not going to happen.
No,
I'd be honestly shocked if he got more than like 10 to 12 carries versus Ohio State. I think that's a heavy dose of Trey Wisner, Jarrett Gibson. And like you said, inside zone, that's something Sark wants to establish. That's what he wants to do. And he wasn't able to do that last year, and he wants to do that this year. And I think Jarrett Gibson is the best back out of these guys that are healthy that can do that.
I'm with you on that. I think that's going to be the secret sauce of the offense.
And then on the freshmen, who do you like more out of the two? Who do you think is more ready, James Simon or Ricky Stewart?
Man, I don't. That's a hard question to answer because I think they're both very different backs. And this is one of the things that I think I've liked about how Tashard Choice has built the running back room is that each guy complements the other guy really well. And so I think this is in my perfect world, like again, spinning it 3 years down the road, it's like a 1-1A situation with them. Man, gun to my head, I couldn't answer that for you. I really don't. I don't have a good answer for you.
Yeah, James Simon is more of a bruiser. He can run. He's not top end. He's not like the high top end speed guy.
No.
But Ricky Stewart is more like of a speedster, and that's what he, like you said, it's thunder and lightning. He always gets one of two. That's what you got last year. You got Jared Gibson, Christian Clark. They're both more bruisers, but Christian Clark does have some more pass catching ability and speed ability. I think just because of that, I think early on in your college career, you can rely more on thumping people than you can of one cut, jump, get around people, speed away. So I'm going to say James Simon. I could be wrong on that. I like Ricky Stewart. I think he's a good player, but I think James Simon, body-wise, is better right now for the college game, and his running style is better for the college game right away.
And I think what we've seen from Sark as far as what he depends on young guys for, you're more likely to see him put a young guy in there to get 3 yards. Like, you need a big body, you need a guy who can fall forward and get you 2.5 yards. So I think you're probably onto something there.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be very interesting what they decide to do there. But for me, let's just get, for right now, gun to your head, guess who gets the most carries game 1 Ohio State. I'm going to say Jared Gibson.
Yeah, I think Jared Gibson probably does as well. I would be shocked if it's anybody but Jared Gibson. I mean, we've all doubted Trey Wisner before, so it may be a situation where Trey Wisner comes in and has a big jump from year 2 to year 3. But I think right now, again, 6 months out from that, Jared Gibson feels like the safe bet.
No, I agree. I think it's hard at this point. We shouldn't be downing Trey Wisner, but at that point, I think what I'm saying is in that game, you'll probably see like 15 carries for Jared Gibson, 13 carries for Trey Wisner type thing. I don't think it's going to be 20 carries for one, 5 carries for the other. But
yeah, no, I think it'll be pretty even split. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if you see like 10 for CJ Baxter and like 12 to 15 for the other two guys behind him. And maybe it turns into Texas feeds the hot hand kind of situation. So that is also something, because that's knock Sark for some other decisions, but generally he's really good at feeding the hot hand in the running game.
Yeah, he does that with wide receivers too. He doesn't like to rotate, and we'll talk about that next. But again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below.